More documents, at least some classified, were found at President Joe Biden's garage. So what's the over-under on when Biden says 50 ex-Intel officials signed a letter stating that the allegation he has classified documents in my office in Wilmington garage has all the classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation operation, end of quote.
Okay. Classified material next to your Corvette. What were you thinking?
Let me, I'm going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon. But as I said earlier this week, people, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage, okay? So it's not like you're sitting out in the street.
So
but anyway,
was in a locked garage.
Yes, as well as my Corvette. But as I said earlier this week, people know I take classified documents and classified material seriously. I also said we're cooperating fully and completely with the Justice Department's review. As part of that process, my lawyers reviewed other places where documents from my time as vice president were stored, and they finished the review last night. They discovered a small number of documents of classified markings in storage areas and file cabinets in my home and my personal library. This was done in the case of the Biden Penn. This was done in the case of the Biden Penn Center. The Department of Justice was immediately, as was done, the Department of Justice was immediately notified, and the lawyers arranged for the Department of Justice to take possession of the document. So we're going to see all this unfold. I'm confident. Thank you very much.
Which is more surprising, that Joe Biden got elected president or that Joe Biden has a think tank? Even CNN's Don Lemon called out Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer on the hypocritical way Schumer responded to Trump's possession of classified documents versus Schumer's response to Biden's possession of classified documents.
This is our reporting. According to one justice official, said that the White House public statements earlier this week offered an incomplete narrative about the classified documents from Biden's time as vice president, reinforced the need for a special counsel. The misleading statements created the impression that Biden's team had something to hide. That doesn't sound that much different than the former president.
John, there's now a special prosecutor. Let's see what they have to say. We can have all this speculation and comment. Let's see what they have to say, and let's focus on doing things that help the American people.
But Senator, I have to say this. You seem much more measured about this than with the Trump documents, because you call for transparency with the Trump documents. You wanted lawmakers to have access to the documents seized from the former president, his residence in Florida, which it seems like you...
Bottom line is, I said that night, it's premature to comment on what should be done.
And I stick by that.
Yes, for President Trump. That's exactly right.
You think that your statements are consistent for both?
I sure do.
For both.
OMG. Hell freezes over. Don Lemon calls out Schumer's blatant hypocrisy to his face. When we come back, Biden brags about the economy. But should he? Days ago, this is how President Biden sized up the economy.
When we look at just the last 3 months, we see that inflation fell to 1.8% on an annualized basis. It's down from more than 11% in the first 3 months of last year. So the data is clear. Even though inflation is high in major economies around the world, it's coming down in America month after month, giving families some real breathing room. And the big reason is falling gas prices. My administration took action to get oil onto the market and bring down prices. Now gas is down more than $1.70 from its peak. That adds up to a typical family with 2 vehicles, to a savings of $180 a month, every single month, that stays in their pockets instead of being spent at the pump. Food inflation is slowing as well. Last month, we saw the smallest increase in food prices in almost 2 years. And much of that increase was due to the avian flu outbreak, which has driven up the egg prices around in the United States. It's not just gas and food prices, though. When we look at what economists call core inflation, which takes out energy and food, we see welcome news as well. Core inflation is down to the lowest level in a year. Over the past 3 months, core inflation has come down to 3% on an annualized basis. That's down from more than 6% at the beginning of 2022. The cost of goods is actually falling, as prices from everything from computers to used cars are coming down as well. And inflation in the core services is moderating as well. Hundreds of thousands of small businesses permanently closed their doors. People were hurting badly. That's what we inherited. The pandemic was raging and the economy was reeling. We acted decisively to put in place a new strategy that would rescue the economy from the pandemic downturn. At the same time, we laid the foundation for a stronger, more resilient economy for decades to come. An economy that grows from the bottom up and the middle out. Now 2 years in, it's clearer than ever that my economic plan is actually working.
And federal revenue continues to soar with the Trump tax cuts, according to a report by the Congressional Budget Office. Now, joining me to discuss this is Elaine Parker, Chief Communications Officer of Job Creators Network. Elaine, what are we worrying about? Let's just do a victory lap and call it a day.
Exactly. Thanks so much for having me, Larry. Here's the real facts, because the president continues to not give the American people the real facts. Inflation is still at 40-year highs. It is up 6.5% over the last 12 months, and core inflation actually increased. It may have moderated a little bit month over month, but core inflation went up. And what core inflation is when you take out the volatile things like food and gas. That means Americans are still paying exorbitant prices for everyday items. And that is very hard for Americans who are struggling month after month. And as far as jobs go, Americans are still, there's a lot of Americans that are sitting on the sidelines, and the president continues to brag about the unemployment rate, but he ignores the labor force participation rate, which is still severely depressed from pre-pandemic levels. We have millions of people who are sitting on the sidelines, not even being counted in our workforce. And if all of those people came back into the workforce, that unemployment rate would actually go up by about 50%.
Elaine, Biden, of course, says that inflation is a worldwide phenomenon. So we ain't the only ones. What's your reaction to that?
Look, the inflation rate is actually still 3 times higher than what the Fed targets. And it's almost 4 times higher than when President Trump left office. It is a direct result of the reckless spending of this administration. So when you hear the president say his economic policies are working, go to the gas station and talk to people filling up their tanks. Go to the grocery store and talk to people who are trying to buy milk, bread, and eggs. They will not tell you that the economic policies are working. This reckless spending has to stop. Our small businesses are hurting tremendously. The supply chain issues are killing them. Labor problems and getting labor to fill the jobs that they have open are killing them. Plus, wage inflation is killing them. Those are the real stories that are happening out there in America, instead of what the president is reading on a teleprompter.